All right. Hello. Good afternoon. Welcome to Tech Teacher Support. I am Chris, and today we're going to do a little bit of work on our distance learning toolbox, and I want to introduce you to Google Classroom. I think this is probably one of the most important tools we have in our toolbox for distance learning. And Google Classroom is something that we're going to sort of intro to you today, learn how to use it, set up sort of our first class, and go from there. But first, let me explain a little bit about Google Classroom. And again, I have our bullet points over here to the side. And let's get right into it. Google Classroom is a virtual meeting place for you and your students and their parents, administrators, right? So it's like your classroom you have at school. So take your first period science class. You have 20 kids in there. Well, most of us are starting online. We're starting virtually this year. So you don't have a physical classroom with your 20 kids in front of you. So Google Classroom is trying to replicate that the best it can. And that's going to be essentially a website called First Period Science that your 20 students will be invited to and become a part of. And that will be your virtual classroom. So you'll make assignments there, you'll post videos there, you'll ask discussion questions, you can do all sorts of assessments there. You can even send emails to parents and give them insight into how your students are doing. You don't give them necessarily grades, but parents can see work that's missing or some kind of stats about how well their student is doing in the virtual classroom. So I know that there are some competitors like Schoology, Power School. So there's a number of different companies that are trying to do this, to create this virtual classroom. But I feel personally that Google Classroom is one of the best. It's the easiest. And like I say there on number 2, it is available for virtually any device. So if you're working with students who some have Android, some have Windows, some have iPhone, you have a Mac, it's okay, because Google Classroom is essentially just a website that you visit. So you can go there with any device. They do make apps. Again, we're going to show you, we have our iPad here. They do make a Google Classroom app, and I suggest that your students download that and use that specifically. But you can always just get to it through a website. So if you're stuck at a library somewhere or you're at grandma's house, you can always get on another computer and log into your classroom. That way there's really no excuse to not get your assignments done or see what's due, right? Number 3. So what you're going to do is create a class for each of your actual classes. And I'm going to show you kind of how to set that up. But if you have a first period science class and a second period science class, you would create 2 Google classes, one called first period science and one called second period science. And then you would invite the kids that are in those classes into those virtual classrooms. And that's where you would conduct your learning and teaching with that group of students. And so then what we're going to do is show you how to make that class, how you can invite people to join it. And then I'm going to show you just sort of how to organize it. I like to make a bookmark with all my classes in it so I can easily get to them. But once you start using it a lot, you may have more efficient ways to do that. So we'll see. And then number 6, this is the first part in a series. So I hope to go more in depth into Google Classroom and just learn right along with you. So if there's questions you have or things that you didn't understand, or you're wondering how to post a YouTube video or how to get kids to do an assignment, just let me know. You can post in the comments below, or of course you can reach us on our Twitter at TechTeacherSup and just post questions there, and we'll make another video or 10 and help you figure that out. So that's why we're here. So let's jump in. I'm going to shoot over to the screen and I'm going to go to Google Classroom on the internet. And we're going to show you how to get there and how to sort of make your first class and what all of this is about. Excuse me. So here we go. So let me flip over to the screen. All right. So Google Classroom, like I said, again, is a website. And so I'm going to, as you can see, launch my Google Chrome. And if you've been following along with our videos, you know that we are signed into our Google Chrome with our school account. So if I kind of zoom up here, you can see that I am signed in as Chris. That's chris@techteachersupport.com, and that is my school account. So you want to make sure that that's the account you're using with Chrome. It'll make things so much easier. And if you want to go back and watch that video, teacher tech tip, how to split your browsers or set up for Google Chrome, that'll help you. Okay, now when you're signed into Chrome and you're on a Google website, now again, I'm just on, the intro page, google.com, you'll notice you have these little dots up beside your name. And that is going to be sort of a quick link to all of the different Google services. So I'm going to click on that. And you'll notice right away my Gmail, my Google Drive, Docs, Sheet, Slides, all of those things that I normally use are right there. You kind of got to do some hunting to find Classroom. It's not here. It's not in this list. It's not in this list. It's actually all the way down at the bottom here. But there it is, Google Classroom. And this is just one way to get to it, but probably one of the quickest ways, unless you bookmark it, and we'll talk about that later. So I'm going to click Google Classroom here, and it's going to take me right over to it. And you'll notice real quick that we are at classroom.google.com. So it's just as easy to sort of bookmark this, put it in your bookmarks bar, and I'll show you how to do that and make a folder a little bit later. But if you don't want to go under your little dots every time, you can always just go straight to this website. So let's zoom in right here. Google Classroom helps classes communicate, save time, and stay organized. Exactly. And it's asking, are you sure you want to use this account? Remember to use your school provided account. And I'm going to say continue. Okay. Now right here is where would normally be a list of all my classes that I'm teaching. Of course, I wanted to show you what it's like to do this for the first time, so I have nothing in here. This is empty. I'm a brand new teacher this year. I'm teaching 6th grade science, and so I kind of have a clean slate. And it even says, don't see your classes, maybe you're in the wrong account. And I see that all the time with teachers. Sometimes they don't even realize they're logged into their personal account, and then they don't see their Google classes, because then they have to go and log into their actual school account, and then they'll see their classes. So it's just telling you again, make sure. Now, there's this little arrow up here in the corner. You see that up in the right hand corner, and it says create or join your first class. So this is again what students are going to see, right? They need to be joining classes. And so we can do in another video what it's like to come into this as a student. But you are the teacher. You're going to be creating classes. You may be doing some professional development or distance learning yourself, and you would join a class. But we're talking about creating today. So create your first class. There's this little plus button here. So I am going to click on that. This is join class or create a class. So let me stop right there before we jump in, and let me kind of lay out the structure. And this is what I usually have teachers do before we start making classes. So let me pull this up right here. So here on my screen, I kind of laid out what you kind of want to do before you just start willy-nilly making classes. And that's kind of lay out your day and what classes for semester 1 or the first 9 weeks or however your school does it. Just lay out this first September to November, December range, right? And so I'm a new teacher at a school. I'm teaching 6th grade science. I just got my, schedule. And here it is. So period 1, I'm teaching 6th grade science. Period 2, 6th grade science. I'm then doing a study hall. And then, of course, it's lunch. And then periods 5, 6, 7, and 8, I am teaching the same section of 6th grade science to, 25 different kids each time. So in all, I have 6 classes. But you'll notice that these are more or less the same 6 classes. I'm teaching rocks or geology or astronomy or physical science, but I'm doing the same sort of lessons as much as I can keep the classes the same. So you can really save a lot of time by assigning a video to watch or a discussion question or a formative assessment. You can assign this one time and shoot it out to all 6 of these classes. So it's a kind of a time saver in its own way. And we'll talk about assignments and grading and all of that in the future. But what you're going to want to do when you lay this out is you, like it says here, are going to want to create 6 classes. And you're going to want to call it 6th grade science period 1, 6th grade science period 2, 6th grade science period 5, and so forth. And then you will invite the 25 kids that are in 1st grade to that period, that first period, to that period 1 class. The students who are in your 5th period, you'll invite to the 5th period class. Because once you get to October, November, your classes are all eventually going to start either becoming at different points. Some are going to learn astrology or astronomy. Sorry, astronomy. You're probably not teaching astrology. Some of them are going to be learning astronomy maybe much more accelerated than other classes. Other classes may learn geology quicker than other classes. Each class has its own sort of character, right? And so those pages will each look unique because you're going to challenge some of the students, or you're going to do some more backtracking and review with other classes. So keeping those separate is very important. You want to separate those kids out into their classes. But again, if there's a discussion question or a video, for example, the Mars rover, you want them to see that video, you can shoot that to all 6 of these classes at once, which is really nice and a time saver. All right, so let's pick back up. I'm going to go to Google Chrome and show you what it's like to start and create your first Google Classroom class. Okay, so let me pull up my little thing again, and right here it says create or join your first class, this plus button, and I will zoom in for you. I'm going to create a class. I'm a teacher. I'm going to need to make my period 1 science class. All right. And so here we are. Let's zoom in. Class name. So I'm going to call this Science, let's say period 1 science. Subject, science, right? Room. I'm not sure what my room is. This is like the room at your school. You may be in room 132, 4B, whatever that may be. Most of us probably don't have rooms right now, so I just leave that blank. And this section would be if you're breaking this class down even further and further and further. I don't mess with that. So period 1 science. Of course, if this were period 2, it would be period 2 science. We'll make that next. And I'm going to click then this create button. So I've given it a name and a subject. Create. Okay. Of course, it's going to take a second to make it. And now here it is. Here is my new Google class. Okay. And it's going to give you sort of what's new in Google Classroom. Google Classroom has probably been used more in the past 3 months than it has in the past 3 years, right? With all of the distance learning going on in the United States, it is a tool that more and more schools by the day are utilizing and relying on. And so with that comes a lot of feedback from teachers over what works and what doesn't, and what takes 9 clicks instead of just 1. And with that comes the developers constantly making updates and changes, which is really cool. So Google wants what's best for teachers and students. So if there's something that you don't like the way it works, you can send your feedback, and hopefully that's something that they incorporate into the next version. And so you'll see this screen every so often, what's new in Classroom, as they update it. As you can see, they are also getting ready for the school year. Schools in America will start within the next month. So they are busy at work making this as easy as possible. Okay, so see student grades for all assignments on the grades page. That's a whole nother video, but this will take care of all of your grading, which is awesome. Rubrics, which I know a lot of teachers find very important, especially in when you're differentiating or doing some of these project-based learning. The rubrics you need to sort of formulate and tie to standards. And so this is really going to help you with that. And of course, customize your stream. Trust me, that's awesome. So they're continuing to update that. I'm going to say got it here. Okay. So let's take a second and let's look at this page and just go over it real quick. Number 1, you see I'm in my period 1 science class. Of course, I have the little hamburger menu over here. And as I continue to make more classes, those classes will show up and it'll let me jump in between them very quickly. So I should eventually see period 2 science, period 5 science, period 6, and so forth. All right. Up here at the top, what we are seeing is sort of the main stream. It's kind of like a social feed, like whether it be Facebook or Twitter, right? It's chronological. And as your teacher posts assignments or videos or web links or research, it will show up in the order it's posted. So this is going to be the first spot your students see, and that's the stream. And so if there's assignments due today, or if there's something you want them to read or look at, this is where you're going to post it. And of course, mine is rather empty right now. We just started it. But you down here, it says share something with your class, and away you go. Boom, off and running. Right here, it says period 1 science. You have a little graphic. Of course, you can make your own photos if you want. And right here, it has a class code and a meet link. 2 very important things. The class code, let me zoom into this a little more. The class code is a very unique code that your students will type in to join your class. So when you find out the 20 kids in your period 1 science, you're going to email them this code, which will let them join your class. Your period 2 science is going to have a completely different code that you'll email the other 20 kids in your period 2 class. So each one of your classes has a unique code, and that's how students are going to know how to get in. And once they're joined, they're in for good, the whole semester, right? So this is usually something you do on day 1, 2, 3. You have all the kids get out their Chromebooks, their MacBooks, whatever it may be, and you have them go to Google Classroom and type in this code. Type it real big on the board, use dry erase markers, whatever, to make this very visible, and the kids will type that in, and boom, they are now in your class. When you post a video for them to watch on the Mars rover, they get a notification that their teacher posted something on their classroom, and then they watch it, and then you post a discussion question about why are we spending money investigating Mars, and they can answer that, and that stays all within that period 1 class, which is awesome. And then real quick under that, the Meet link. Google Meet is the video tool that teachers and students have been using a lot, and that's essentially the link that the students can use when you want to do video conferencing with them. So if you want to show off a science experiment live and you want your students to tune in and ask questions because you're doing the science experiment on your patio and they're all at their houses, Google Meet is going to let them join into that science experiment. So that's a little bit about that. Right down here, you see this box that says upcoming. This will let the students know what assignments you've assigned and when they're due, if there's any deadlines coming up soon, right? And speaking of classwork, that is the next sort of tab up here, classwork. And this again is going to be where you create your assignments. And assignments can be interactive, that things that students need to do. They can be provocative discussion questions. They can be, essentially anything that you would normally assign in the classroom. You need to digitize it and assign it through Google Classroom, right? And that's not, you're not copying worksheets and putting them in here. These are interactive, integrated lessons. So that's where the students can go and see all of the assignments and when they're due. This next tab here, people, right? This shows you who's teaching the class, you, plus maybe you have a assistant teacher in your classroom, or maybe you have a substitute who is working with your class a lot. You can assign other teachers to work with you, that they can assign work and do grading and things like that as well. So if you are in a classroom that has more than one teacher, this is perfect because you can send an invitation to your assistant teacher to have them join as well. And then students right here is going to be your master list of which students are in this period 1 class. And so this will make sure, and again, it gives that join code right there. This will make sure that if you have 20 kids in your physical classroom, you have those same 20 kids in your virtual classroom. So if you don't see a student, that means they haven't typed this code in and joined your classroom. So you're going to want to make sure to help them do that. And then finally up here is grades, right? And because I don't have students and I haven't assigned any work, I can't grade anything. So this is really empty right now, but trust me, this is where all of your grading will be done for this class, period 1 science. All right, and I'm going to go back up here to stream. So there we go. We have, let's see, we're about 20 minutes. That's a good stopping point. That's a lot of Google Classroom information all at once for you. But what we've effectively done is gone to Google Classroom, started our first class, and now what we need to do is email our students this class code so they can join and we can have some students in here. What you might want to do is go ahead and create all your classes. So for example, if we look at this here, I have also a period 2, 5, 6, 7, and 8 class. So again, I might go back over here to my little menu. And let's see, I want to make a new class. How do I do that? Here's settings. No, it's not in settings. Let's go back to my classes. Okay, my main classes menu. So here we go. This is definitely a website you want to bookmark. So I'm going to do that. This is classroom.google.com. I'm going to drag this out and put it right there. All right, my bookmarks bar. But personally, what I like to do is have a bookmark for each one of my classes. So I'll show you how to do that. Let's make a new class. So I have period 1 science. And I'm going to pop up here to the plus sign. I'm going to create one more class. I'm going to call this period 2 science. Okay. And say create. And it should, there we go. It even tells you, hey buddy, this is where you invite students using this code. And as you can see, the code is completely different from the last one that started with an X. This one, they're all very unique, right? Got it. So period 2 science. And again, you would go to people and you would want to make sure that the students in this class were your period 2 students. You don't want any students from period 1 or period 5 in here. These are just the students for period 2. Because again, maybe period 2, you're taking an extra week to talk about the Mars rover because the period 2 students are really into that. For some reason, the other classes aren't as much. So you don't want kids mixing up in the classes. You want to keep them separate. And then again, we can go over here to the menu in the upper left. And you can see now I can quickly just get back to my period 1 class if there's something I forgot to grade, or, I just wanted to check in on that and do some work on it. Okay. So, and again, if I click my little classes bookmark I just made, there it is. The last step I want to do is create a folder for my different classes. So up here on my bookmarks, I'm going to right click and say add a folder. And I'm going to call this G classes. Let me zoom out here for you. G classes, okay. And I'm going to put this one in to that. Then I'm going to go to my period 1 class and add that. And then I'm going to go to my period 2 class and I'm going to add that. Now you'll notice when I click my little folder here, I can easily get to my main class list or any of my specific classes. All right. So that's how I keep it organized, by making a folder like that and putting my 6 or 7 classes in there. So I can always just go right to one of the classes that I need to. Okay, so let's flip back. So thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you learned a little bit about what Google Classroom is. You took the plunge, you created your first class. Maybe you're someone who's used Google Classroom before and you want some more in-depth tips about best ways to use it and what you can post and how you can do it. So for those of you, stay tuned. This is just the beginning of a continuing series on Google Classroom where I hope to go a little bit more in depth and answer your questions and help you use this the most effective way possible to make your school year awesome. So thanks again for tuning in. Remember to post your questions in the comments below or at TechTeacherSup on Twitter. We'll be back tomorrow with more on Google Classroom and Distance Learning Toolbox. Thank you and have a great day. All right, bye.